Gun issues made headlines at the state capitol here in Colorado this week as Republican lawmakers proposed 3 separate bills aimed at easing gun regulation, including a bill that would allow firearms on school campuses. All 3 bills failed in a House committee vote along party lines. David, these bills were nothing new. They've appeared before, and in a House committee where the Democrats have the majority, they weren't likely to go anywhere. So maybe I'm being cynical, but it felt more like a stunt. What do you surmise from what we saw at the legislature this week?
Oh, it's common in the legislature on many things. Is minority party member has some bill they believe in and they keep bringing it back, and the majority party says, oh, well, that might actually get some bipartisan support on the floor, so we're going to make sure it never gets to the floor. And that's what the purpose of the State Affairs Committee in the House and the Senate is, no matter which party's in control of that. That's its traditional role. Colorado's one of 18 states that currently allows, under some circumstances, armed defenders at schools, and not beyond on-duty police officers. There are at least 6 cases over the years where attacks on schools have been stopped because there was an armed defender present at the time. Arapahoe High School here a few years ago, the school resource officer, sheriff's deputy, was there within 80 seconds and stopped the criminal. And 1 person was killed, and that's why it's not a famous national atrocity, because he was there quickly. Pearl, Mississippi in 1997, it was the vice principal who ran and got the handgun out of his car. In Colorado, what the Independence Institute is doing is working to help teachers participate in a program called FASTER. It was created in Ohio. It gives them training from doctors and from defensive gun experts like SWAT team members about how to deal with an active shooter, about how to apply emergency medical care, and also how to confront and stop the shooter. That's already going on in Colorado. School districts can designate employees as security guards. Some have, and the Independence Institute is working to help them be as well trained as possible.
Penn, what did you think of the move this year? Is it standard election year maneuvering?
Partly. Clearly, the representatives that sponsored the bills in the House knew they were going to die. They wanted to make a point. They wanted to have the conversation. And even though I may have disagreed with the legislation, I think that's a legitimate role for any legislator to play. If you have an issue that you want brought out and you want to have a conversation, you ought to run the bill. And if it dies, it dies, but you have a right to push that issue and have the conversation. So I don't have a problem with that. I think they were colossally bad ideas, at least 2 of the 3. One, I'm sort of on the fence, the one that would have allowed business owners and employees to defend their premises. But I don't think we need more armed teachers in schools. They ought to be teaching. If you want to have protection, hire a police officer who is specifically licensed and trained and certified and equipped for certain circumstances. What we saw in Florida this time notwithstanding, where the officer didn't engage, but that's fine. But I don't think we need a bunch of teachers running around strapped in the classroom or in the school. I don't think that makes sense. And I don't have a problem with continuing the ban on the high-capacity magazines either. But like I said, the other one is sort of touch and go. But sure, it's sort of election year maneuvering. But they're legitimate conversations to have. One other thing to keep in mind with this whole gun debate that I think we're not focusing on now just because of the prominence of the school shooting is part of this whole conversation that is occurring is, we've lost sight of the fact of all of the shootings by, law enforcement officers of innocent civilians, in large measure African-American men, and how that has been sort of an epidemic over the last few years. And so that's part of what I think is sort of a subcurrent in this entire conversation, why people are not feeling entirely confident about giving more people the right to run around and start firing shots wherever they feel like it or if they feel they're being helpful.
Michael, do the bills and their failure make it headlines later, or not headlines, maybe political ads later this year?
I think they could. I mean, they're always used. These are the bills that come up every single year, especially since 2013. I think this was just, the opportunity after this happened for the Republicans to do this. I think the Democrats will take a shot at it at some point too, of more gun control, and the Senate will shoot that down. I think there's more likely that something, it's not very likely, but more likely that something happens on the national level when President Trump comes out and talks about bump stocks, talk about increased background checks, talks about raising the age of purchasing guns. So I think, if anything happens, I see more on the national level than in Colorado. But I think in Colorado, too, we have a system the Attorney General does called Safe to Tell. And basically this program, you can anonymously call in and leave tips about stuff. The counties also have a similar type program. And I think we need to do a better job of promoting this so that kids know, so that everybody knows that this can be used, so that if somebody is a threat, that they can report that.
Patty, is this the last we'll hear about guns at the legislature this year?
Oh, sure. No, of course not. We will be hearing plenty. But if you want to remove the ban on high-capacity magazines, the week after a major shooting is not good timing for you. I think the most interesting thing coming out of the Capitol yesterday was the health department, the state health department, which said, hey, let's remove the federal ban on funds going to looking into gun violence. That was, I hope Trump picks up that too, because he talked about the mental health issues. He talked about raising the age for guns. He said some good things, but to do more research to figure out how is this happening and why is this happening, and then apply the lessons the right way. We've got a problem there. Look what happened this week in schools in Colorado. We had plenty of people telling, because we must have had half a dozen incidents at least with students making threats in schools. Mm-hmm.